So here comes a question from Jake.
Hey, Brad. My name is Jake. I'm 22 years old and have a great chunk of change sitting in my bank account right now. I most recently put a huge percentage into the Webull platform so I can invest into some safe index funds just so that my money isn't losing value due to inflation. Is there any recommendations onto which funds to invest into? Thank you.
Great question. And a question that comes up a ton, Jake, if you haven't listened to the Average Money podcast with me and JJ Buckner. We've talked about the difference between saving and investing. And it seems like you kind of made up like your choice that you want to start deploying some of that cash and start investing it. And the question being like what to invest it in. I'm going to touch upon like a few different things. When should you send that money into investments? When should you hold it in liquid cash? I know at 22 years old, that fear of I'm losing money to inflation, right? You have to understand, yes, if you hold cash, you are losing money to inflation, but the amount of money that would need to be invested inside cash to lose a monumental amount over time, like you're not going to lose to inflation over 3 to 5 years. I mean, yes, fractions of a cent, So I wouldn't worry too much. Like if you don't want to keep money in the bank because you want to invest it, that's one thing. But I don't see the real need to deploy cash in the fear of losing it to inflation, because having liquid cash on you will benefit you in the long run, and it will probably benefit you before you really see the main effects of losing that to inflation. So there's many different reasons why people store up cash. Number one, people store cash because they want to be liquid cash, right? They're either intimidated by investing, they don't want to invest, they never heard about investing, they think it's like risky, it's gambling, so they just hold a lot of cash. Okay, that's fine. Those people, it's probably going to be tough to talk them into doing any sort of investing. The next type of person is somebody that, has a saving up for a house or a real estate investment or a wedding ring or a wedding and things like that. And they're like, well, I know that the markets are doing good. I know that I'm losing money to inflation. I'm not really getting much interest if I hold liquid cash. I want to deploy some of that. That's the second type of person. And I think the third type is just somebody that has like 3 to 6 months of their emergency fund because somebody told them that you need to be liquid cash, and they just have this arbitrary number of cash sitting around and they don't really know why. There's really no purpose to it. The first person, okay, like I said, I'm probably not going to talk you into investing. As far as like house, future, like big expenses, weddings, wedding rings, and things like that, I generally have no problem whatsoever investing that money if you are going to be investing that money and that major purchase you feel is more than 5 years away, because we are one day away from a possible correction in the market, right? We are literally one day away. So if you were planning on buying a house in like the next 2 years, you might take a correction tomorrow that might not recoup in 2 years. 5 years, I'm going to be optimistic and say probably. So if you're 22 and you're not planning on getting married and buying a house until you're 28, and you want to deploy some of that money into the market and invest it for a better interest rate or to avoid inflation, I'm for that. But if it's before 5 years, I'm really going to say just hold it in cash and trust me there, because cash opportunities also come up. Hard money lending, buying real estate, things like that. There's no bad thing. Like no one's ever going to, well, I can't say no one's ever going to say. Most people that know what they're talking about are never going to criticize you like, look at that Jake guy. He's got all that freaking cash sitting around. Like that sounds ridiculous, right? Especially at 22 years of age. People should be saying, look at this guy spending money like an asshole, YOLOing money and partying and buying things he doesn't need, right? That's the bigger problem. The last type of person is the person that has this 3 to 6 months and they just feel like it's too much. Like they're like, I have 3 to 6 months expenses, but I have a pretty secure job. Like take me, for example, like I have a pretty secure job, pretty secure income. My wife's income is really, really good. I don't need to be liquid heavy like 6 months. I have money liquid for other things like real estate, but as far as like quote emergency funds, I invest my entire emergency fund. I consider liquid cash that I can get back in like 5 to 10 business days. And I also don't keep any money in my checking account either. I keep all of that inside my brokerage in my buying power. Inside Vanguard, I think it's their money market fund, their federal money market fund. That's where all my cash sits. It's hard to get to. I can't be hacked. You can't be stood up at an ATM. Like inside my checking account, virtually nothing. And inside my Capital One, all my sinking funds and stuff, that's money that I might need or just money that I have coming up. Now, to get past all of that, because you did ask like what type of funds, I got to be honest, and I've said it once and it's going to sound so cliche, and the people that have been watching my channel for a little bit, broad-based index funds. I don't care if you choose the total stock market or the S&P 500. I really don't care. I do not care if it's in Fidelity. I don't care if it's in Vanguard. I don't care if it's SPY. Like I said, I'm not going to pick and choose like which ones, but VTI and VOO are my go-to ETFs. That's where my emergency funds are, and that's where I deploy most of my money. 96% of my income is there. So I guess like the overall like overarching idea here is don't just invest money because you're afraid you have too much cash. I wouldn't worry too much about that, okay? If you've already convinced yourself that you do, or you know that you have too much cash and you want to just start to deploy that into the markets, start broad-based index funds. Start VTI, start VTSAX, same thing. Start VOO, right? What's the worst that can happen, right? You change your mind. Just because you buy 10 shares of VOO today doesn't mean you have to own those shares forever. Maybe at 25 years old, you're like, you want to know what? I hate broad-based index funds and I want to be a YOLO day trader. Well, you sell those stocks off and you trade with the money. So nothing's set in stone. Don't get yourself in a mentality where you feel like every single decision you make is going to be the last decision you have to make, because you're probably going to make mistakes along the way. Hell, at 22 years old, you can still screw up like thousands of times, right? At 35 years old, I had $189,000 worth of debt and a negative net worth of like minus $29,000. And I had a house, I had a teaching job, my wife had a job, I had a multi-million-dollar brewery, I had a brand new truck, and I was worth nothing at 35. And at 39 now, some would consider me, with my real estate, a millionaire. So I think you can get there, and I think by asking the questions, you're already doing a good job, bud. I hope that helped answer your question. If it didn't and you want to follow up, just let me know. Leave in the comments, something like that, and I'll be sure to follow up on it. Robin, what are the chances Brad does not say VTSAX or VTI? Slim to none, Robin. You've been around for a little bit now. Slim to none. I mean, it doesn't suck. It doesn't. Like, VTI does not suck, especially in a situation where we're talking about just like emergency fund money, or not like traditional investments, but like, yeah.